Chapter 1. Lord, I'm completely lost and have gone to look for myself. Please help me to wait until I find me and thee again. Guide my feet. Maybe you should stop looking for another place to live. Why not ask God to just send you home, he suggested. There was this awkward pause between the two of us. His statement, disguised as a question, created this deafening silence, and it was loud. Malcolm's question startled me, took me off guard, wiped me off my feet, and all the other phrases used to describe surprise. I suppose I was so surprised because I had just met Malcolm Duplessis, yet the words of advice flowed so freely from his mouth. After the silence, took a deep breath, and sucked all the air out of the room. By the way, we were standing outside looking at the beach. I was able to wrap my heart around the suggestion, this proposal of note. I would pray and ask God to send me home. At this point, I didn't have a clue where home was or what it might look like upon my arrival, but couldn't hurt to ask. I would accept this custom-made-for-me challenge, as I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. To take that first step, I would need to cast my overly analytical mind aside and accept that some things would be revealed one step at a time. To follow the path before me with expectation for a safe delivery to, well, home, of course. Malcolm was the newest person to have entered my life back then, in the thicket of my personal crisis. Other than the business phone calls, we had not spent any time in each other's physical space. He had invited me to work as a co-producer with him on a collaborative music project to welcome in the new South Africa, while also bringing a deeper and more respectful awareness to the musicianship of his country. The project would bring together the talents of Black American artists and Black South African artists, sharing in celebratory songs of hope, anticipation, and optimism for the birth of the new South Africa, his birthplace. When he first called to talk about this musical celebration idea, with the invitation attached to come on over to South Africa on one of his visits home, just to see and meet some of the musicians, as his calling card, my inner gut feeling of flatly refused. Nope. No way. Not interested. Yet I tried to be polite and put on airs while also hoping to put him off and his idea. I tried to convince him that there was very little I knew about the music of South Africa. I didn't have the heart to say I wasn't interested. I was in my own private, personal struggle and needing my own celebration of hope. Yet against what he knew and what he didn't about what I was going through at this time, he was insistent. And so I went to LA to meet with him and others about the nuts and bolts of this proposed music project before making a final decision to make the trip to South Africa. I first refused a couple of times because of the timing of the invite. I had recently gone through a very public, professional, and personal divorce at the time of our meeting, and my thoughts were filled with constant questions regarding my future and the future of my son and daughter, not taking a trip halfway around the world. While it was one less egg to fry at home and one less contract to sign in the office, there was still a demand for my time and attention in the midst of all the drama that separation brings. I had just signed a creative concept project deal with Warner Records, and while that should have excited me, most days ran into each other, leaving me numb. The separation and hurt caused a fog. I was also struggling with the prospect of closing down my office for good, which was on Music Row in Nashville. I could either move back home, that word again, to New York, or perhaps to California, where an offer had been made for me to sell my company and go to La La Land and do some of what I had been doing in the entertainment world. Home. Interesting word. And even as I look back over the conversation of that day, not so far from here, I smile when I repeat this four-letter word, jam-packed with a very different meaning for me now. Actually, Malcolm's question would not introduce, but rather refresh my memory, like a cool, sweet glass of homemade lemonade, served up on a hot, not a breeze in sight, summer's day while rocking in the rocking chair reserved only for the front porch of a loved one's house. Home had always symbolized more to me than square feet on a block somewhere in some town or gated community. Home to me represented handmade quilts, jars of pickled anything to be eaten and enjoyed, the smells of cinnamon and nutmeg coming from the oven. Home is where you are allowed and even encouraged to undress completely, not just strip off those items of clothing from your physical self, but also supported when discovering the need to shed some waste from your soul self. It's where you are cheered on while being released into becoming your best self. Then, as if almost by accident or more like divine providence, Malcolm shows up to give me this gift wrapped in clarity, showing itself as direction, the road less traveled, the unbeaten paths and presence, the thought of home versus another place to live that he would share with me. One profound truth that everything I needed would be provided for at home: nurturing, healing, developing, courage, wisdom, and time off for behavior befitting of a queenly spirit, not for some desperate child seeking attention. Home would give back to me what I had lost, given away, or in some case never had, expecting only one thing in return: that I would share these gifts given freely to me to others. Then life started to change as I prayed that prayer: Lord of heaven and of earth, please, Father, I'm asking you, giving you permission to send me and my children home. And there were questions. I think this is when you...
Yeah, you can, if you like, you can do that. Can I just say something?
Yes, yes.
The thing that's really interesting about the book is that at the end of each chapter, Gail invites the reader to participate with the book. So at the end of each chapter, there is a question that she asks the reader to answer for themselves. Not the content of the books, I was only kidding, but really to take the time and look inward and answer the question. So we're going to ask you to do that at this time. And the question is? Record
when, how, or by whom the gift of guidance in a new direction made a profound impact for change in your life. When, how, or by whom the gift of guidance in a new direction made a profound impact for change in your life.